Welcome to episode 458 of the AM PM podcast. You know, since Trump took office earlier this year, it's just been all the talking has been trade wars and tariffs going up and down, and it's hard to discuss those because you don't know what's going to be happening the next day. But one thing that's better to discuss is what are the different options out there that you should be looking at, trade war or not trade war. And that's our discussion today with Jim from Cosmos Sourcing. He specializes in Vietnam. He started off in China and then has been in Vietnam for about the last 12, 13 years. Before it was cool to actually source in Vietnam. So he's super well connected about the ins and outs of what's happening in Vietnam, what's appropriate for Vietnam, what you should maybe not do in Vietnam. And so that's what we're going to talk about today as the options of Vietnam as a possible sourcing destination for you and your e-com business. Enjoy this episode with Jim.
Welcome to the AM/PM podcast. Welcome to the AM/PM podcast, where we explore opportunities in e-commerce.
We dream big and we discover what's working right now.
Plus, this is the podcast where money never sleeps, working around the clock in the AM and the PM.
Are you ready for today's episode?
I said, are you ready? Let's do this. Here's your host, Kevin King. Kevin King.
I got Jim Kennemer on the podcast. This guy goes back. I know a lot of you probably haven't heard of him in the Amazon space, but he's been around for a day or two doing this sourcing. How you doing, Jim? Glad to have you here.
Doing great. Doing real good. How about yourself?
I'm alive and kicking, as my buddy Mark Don would say. So it's all good. I met you. You're speaking at an event that I went to in Florida back in May, and you're talking about this hot topic right now. I think there's like 26 of you out of the 27 speakers that were speaking about tariffs.
Yeah, I was not the only one talking about tariffs.
It was a hot thing at this back in May when at the time of your talk. I think were we at 145, and then I think it was like shortly after that it went to the 30%. I gave the speech on on a Wednesday. At that time, it was 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. And then by that Monday, they announced a 90-day pause. So it's down to 30% for goods from China to the United States. So constantly changing. I feel like pretty much half of what I said. Like, it's hard to it's been all over the place. First, it goes from nothing to then Trump put on a 25%. Was it 2018 or 2017? Somewhere back in there?
2018 and 2019.
And then everybody thought Biden would take it away when he took over president. He kept it on and added a few to it. Mm-hmm. And then Trump comes in, starts every day. It was like, what was it? Went to 40, then 60, then 90, then I don't
45, know. 84.
Whatever number he rolled on the dice.
Yeah. Some very random numbers, I feel like.
And it's very difficult to actually do any like, what do we do? We got stuff on the water. Should I put in orders or whatever? And everybody's freaking out. Mm-hmm. But some of the big boys weren't freaking out. They were ahead of this because they had their pulse on the wind and see which way it's directed, which going. And they had already placed some bigger orders, already got some stuff in. Mm-hmm. And some of them had already been mitigating their risk by looking at other countries, which is what you specialize in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm Jim. I don't know, we really got a proper introduction, but I run a product sourcing company. We've been operating in Vietnam since 2014 and expanding globally. But we've had a lot of clients that were, already sourcing for Vietnam, just in anticipation of more trade chaos. And then other people who had kind of worked with us to find alternative suppliers and never really placed an order up until April when the 145% tariffs went into effect. And so a lot of people were really prepared and ready to move, but we also, throughout last month, or throughout April, several months ago, we talked to several clients who, big sellers too, 7 to 8 figure sellers who had no backup plan on China and just were quite frankly scrambling. So I've seen sellers that had all different types of preparations, some that had very well detailed plans of where alternate sourcing locations, alternate inventory strategies, other ones who just had their company running on autopilot and did not expect to experience turbulence like they did.
Well, I think what caused a lot of people to freak out is they kind of expected Trump to do something crazy, maybe not to that extent. Yeah, but what they did not expect is when he rolled out this long scroll of like all the 100 and something other countries, and Vietnam was on that at 46%.
Yeah, they were.
And then everybody's like, oh, that I thought I was going to bypass this. I'll go to Vietnam. Now I'm at 40. Now he put that on hold, and that's being negotiated at the time of this recording. That's being negotiated. But so that freaked a bunch of people out too.
Absolutely.
So let's back up a couple steps here. So this sourcing in Vietnam is not new.
Not at all.
People are talking about it more now. And it gets mentioned a lot of times in there with India and Indonesia and Mexico. It seems to be the common ones that people have at the tip of the tongue. There's plenty of other options, but that's the ones that people seem to be focused the most on. But you originally, when you started sourcing, you were based in Shanghai or somewhere, right? And you were doing
I started sourcing.
And you saw the writing on the wall 13 years ago.
Yeah. So in 2012, I started Cosmos sourcing in 2012 in Shanghai. So I was like every other company, I feel like was product sourced from China. But in 2014, actually 2013 is when the first time I visited Vietnam, but I just fell in love with the country. No one's really saw Vietnam as an opportunity then. And so, I had a chance in 2014 to move to Vietnam. At that point, I already quit my job, was working on Cosmos sourcing full time. So August 2014, I decided to move to Vietnam and primarily focus on sourcing from Vietnam. And at the time, no one was really even had on the radar, maybe a few companies. And we got a few clients like right off the bat, but it was definitely something you really had to convince people, hey, Vietnam is also can make stuff, because everybody at the time was just looking only at China, exclusively at China. Like they made everything for everybody at that time. And no one else was really even close to competing. And what we could do in Vietnam is pretty limited in 2014. Like to see the changes in growth in 10 plus years is quite frankly insane. Like we were doing really basic industrial wooden goods, some clothing and whatnot.
Lacquer stuff and
a little bit of lacquer. The big things we were doing, like the very first project I did was actually, I don't know if you've seen wire, like on big trucks, the big like electric wire on the big spools. We did the big wooden spools. That was our first project we did in Vietnam. And the second one we did was wooden wheelbarrow handles and shovel handles. So we kind of was industrial wood was kind of what our first niche was in Vietnam. And then we started expanding a lot of apparel and textile, and then a lot of backpacks and luggage after that. But since then last few years, we started doing more electronic manufacturing services, which is even something I thought Vietnam could do 5+ years ago.
Yeah, I have a buddy that Vietnamese guy, his name's Duy Nguyen, and it's pronounced Nguyen. If you see, it's not Nguyen. People always say Nguyen, Nguyen, and no, it's pronounced Nguyen, like WIN. But he was a coder for me and did a lot of my coding on some old sites that I had before I was doing the whole e-commerce. I had some other businesses. Yeah. And then he developed this sprinkler system. And this was like, I don't know, 15 years ago or something. Or 12 years ago, he's developed a sprinkler system to control, kind of like control all the sprinklers in your house, and had a little electrical device. And he was an electrical engineer, but he was manufacturing in Vietnam. And at the time, I was like, dude, why don't you just go to China? He's like, no, Vietnam's better. It's cheaper. I can speak the language. It's my people. I want to help them out. But he was kind of early to it. But when did the Chinese? A lot of people don't realize that. Yes, Vietnam has their own infrastructure of manufacturing, but a lot of what's happened and a lot of reason for the boom is the Chinese have gone there and set up factories and brought in some Chinese people to actually run those, and even some of the labor is Chinese. So can you walk us tell us how when about did that really start happening and what you're seeing going on in that? Yeah,
that was really the first trade war back in 2019, the first 25% tariffs Trump did. So Vietnam is different from China in that they allow foreign ownership of factories. So there are a lot of foreign owned factories, and by our estimation, it's probably about 20, maybe up to 25% now of factories in Vietnam are owned Chinese. But after that first boom, a lot of Chinese companies were setting up pretty much clones of their factories in Vietnam, literally same machinery, same management. And actually kind of a funny story about that. In 2019, probably 2019, maybe 21. I had a client who wanted to move his factory from from China to Vietnam. And we took him on a couple of tours. He makes political signs. So he had like corrugated plastic, chromoplast, chromo printing, and a few other specific requirements for these factories. But we went to like 3 or 4 factories that could do it. But one of these factories, as soon as he walked in, he was like, oh, this factory can do it, because he saw the machinery is the exact same machinery that his factory in China had. So we tour it, get to meet the management. So he was like, yeah, this is like really weird. It's like same machinery, a lot of same things. So at the end of the tour, we were just like, as a floor manager, kind of walking us around. But we get at the end of the tour, we get to meet the management. Turns out the exact same factory that he was working with in China, same owners. Yeah, it's a Vietnamese name, so all Vietnamese structure. So when he looked it up, it was like, Binh Duong sign printing company or something along that lines. But yeah, it was the exact same owner. Ended up like setting up a clone pretty much exactly as his factory in China was. And he didn't even know that. Like he didn't want to talk to his Chinese factory because he didn't want to get on the radar that he was looking at moving to Vietnam, which is why he never asked. But yeah, it turns out it was the exact same factory
that they own. So did they catch on to that before they gave him a price, or did he get a price before they caught on to that?
Well, he got a price. It's the same factory. So, I mean, he's doing business with the same people now. So, yeah. So, yeah, it was the same factory. Yeah.
I've been to Vietnam. I've been to the north end of the south of Vietnam. And so I'm familiar with it. But a lot of people are not. They really love Americans there. They love the West.
Do.
I mean, a lot of people think, well, there was this war 50 years ago and they hate us. They actually don't. They are very...
It's never been an issue. I've lived there for years. No issue.
The West. But are there regions of Vietnam that are industrial? Like, China has pockets and regions. Does that exist in Vietnam too? Or how does it work?
Yeah, there's definitely big clusters of factory. I mean, our office, we say Ho Chi Minh City, but it's actually in Binh Duong province, which is about an hour outside of Ho Chi Minh City. And that's the largest single industrial area in Vietnam. But even around Ho Chi Minh, there's Long An, Dong Nai. So within about a 1 to 2 hour radius, as all the factories, and there's definitely clusters. And then up in Hanoi has several clusters. Like around Hanoi, I mean, Apple has their own, and Samsung have their own clusters where they make Galaxy phones and a bunch of Apple products. So yeah, it's definitely clustered, predominantly in those two areas. Ho Chi Minh has about 55% of the industrial production in the country in about a 2-3 hour radius of the city. There's not much in the city center itself, but it's all more or less a circle around the city of manufacturers.
So are the parts being made? Is everything being made from scratch in Vietnam, or is a lot of the raw material still coming from China into Vietnam where the labor is being done?
A lot of raw materials, a lot of components are still coming from China. But yeah, the final product's made in Vietnam and the actual production's done in Vietnam. Like we're on backpacks, like the zippers, the buckles, some fabrics like certain nylons will come from China, but the actual production will be done in Vietnam. And when we get molds, like we're doing one luggage project, and it's kind of hard because all the molds for this ABS hard shell luggage all come from China. So we're trying to find mold manufacturers outside of China, and that's kind of hard to do. There's some in Taiwan, so we might go with Taiwanese manufacturer for the molds. But yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff like that still comes from China, and it helps because the proximity is pretty close to China, and it's relatively easy to move stuff from China to Vietnam.
So Vietnam basically is where China was maybe 20 years ago, where the labor is, if the average person in the U.S., I think maybe it was you or somebody showed this, it's $30. In China, it's $18, and in Vietnam, it's $6 an hour or something like that. They're still at that.
Yeah.
So that's the main advantage is the labor cost, right?
Yeah, labor cost is definitely getting higher and higher every year. Before 2019, it was significantly cheaper than China, but after 2019, I feel like labor cost, which is good for the workers, has been going up, and it's starting to kind of relatively reach near the same level. I would still say it's cheaper, but I mean, it's going to be cheaper than a tier 1 city in China, but also potentially even more expensive than tier 4 or tier 5 city in China. So it's generally cheaper.
So as a labor pool, I mean, the people doing the menial work are most likely Vietnamese, but what about like the design engineers, the engineers and stuff? Are those having to come from China, or is there a lot of education that's really ramped up in Vietnam where they're producing out of their universities? It's
a mix, honestly. And like we said, it's like they do allow foreign ownership of factories. The countries that actually own the most foreign factories tend to actually be Japan, Korea, Taiwan, more than even China. So we actually work with, in Vietnam. So like when we do like screws and whatnot, like we work with Japanese owned factories. There's like 2 or 3 of them that just do screws and fasteners. And yeah, all the management there would be, in that case, Japanese, engineers as well, Japanese. We work with some EMS manufacturers, and there's a mix, some Chinese, but the biggest one are actually Taiwanese owned. And so it's the same deal, like Taiwanese manufacturers and engineers. So it's definitely will be a mix. So yeah, it tends, when there's foreign investment in the factory, they tend to have their management from the respective country. we even do like Danish-owned factories. Like we do a lot of workwear. For instance, like some work outerwear. And that's a Danish-owned company, and they again have Danish engineers and managers, Danish designers, and whatnot.
How are the factories in China still mostly? I'm sorry, in Vietnam still mostly human labor, or are they getting robotics? Like I see stuff all the time on TikTok and on online how China's just ramping up the robot. I mean, Amazon and people are doing that here in the West too, but they're ramping up crazy robotics. Is that happening in China, or is it still more the manual type of stuff?
Still mostly manual, but there's definitely been some advancements. Like when we do even like fabric cut and sew projects, like in the old days, I mean, they get like literally the paper patterns for the fabrics, draw it out on a piece of chalk, and then have a bandsaw basically cut it. And even now, like I'm seeing, like they just put the fabric in a big pile, and then it's actually a lot of it's even laser cut now. So that's getting more advanced. Like a lot of furniture factories have more CNC machining, and we're seeing some 3D printing and more CNC machining. But overwhelmingly, it's still majority is people focus. Yeah, I know in China, I've seen like videos of the dark factories, and it's crazy. And we don't know what dark factories are. They're literally the factories where they don't have lights, or they turn off the lights because there's no people on the floor. So they save electricity, just turn off the lights. And so, they call them dark factory. And I really want to see some. I know some of the car factories over there are basically very few people, almost entirely robots in China now, which is just insane.
What about the infrastructure? I mean, in China, the wheels are well greased to get raw materials to the factory. If another factory down the street needs something, they're all in the same area. They can get things easily. And then once it's ready to get to the ship, the transport and the packaging and the getting everything out, it just works. It works like a clockwork. Yeah. Does the same happen in Vietnam, or do we have some stumbling blocks where it's like, there's a little bit more issues, a little bit more trouble. Some things can go wrong a little bit more, not quite as well greased. Or what are you seeing there on logistics side?
It's gotten much better in the last few years. Everything is kind of clustered so that similar industries tend to be in the same area. But yeah, I mean, in the last several years, the ports have expanded massively. Like pre-2019, pre-2020, like a lot of the ports were just overcrowded. Like literally trucks will wait days outside the ports just to load on containers. And I have not seen that issue as much anymore. Brownouts were occasional, but again, last few years it's not been an issue at all. So they're definitely getting more and more advanced investments into infrastructure. Vietnam's definitely spending big to make sure everything goes smoothly, but it's still not on the par with China, because China, I mean, the infrastructure is just insane.
It is,
to be honest, but it's getting better and still pretty good. And yeah, with clusters, like anytime we do wooden goods, you'll find that everything from the raw logs to processing from the raw logs all the way into the finished furniture, no matter if it's like high end or low end MDF furniture, all those factories are like clustered within the same industrial park. Like basically there's a raw log processor who takes the logs, make the boards, and then they sell it off to the next person, and then so on and so on until you get the finished furniture product. So yeah, you definitely see that cluster. And same with fabric. Like there's a couple of fabric mills and they get clustered together. But yeah, I mean, definitely with wooden goods, it's extremely clustered. They just really kind of figure out where the port is, because it comes down the river a lot of times from plantations up in the Mekong River Delta. And then right where they unload it, they pretty much process it right next to the port. And then it's all within a mile radius or so, 5 or 6 different factories working one after the other, take it all the way from a raw log to the finished furniture product. It's quite impressive to see, because we were talking about like one client just at a furniture factory talking about, because he wanted 7-layer plywood for his product. And the factory was like, yeah, we just buy our plywood from the factory next door. Let's go check them out. So he called up the factory manager, went next door to the factory next door where they made the plywood. And so we started talking about with that factory about their plywood standards and how they could do 7-layer plywood. And he had like specific thicknesses and all that. And so, yeah, it was basically just extra 30-minute meeting with a different factory added on, because it's literally next door and you guys plywood how he wanted it.
What are the big ports in Vietnam where most things ship it out of?
Yeah, I mean, we ship out of Vung Tau. Saigon has their own port. Up in Hanoi is Cat Ba. And a couple others. Da Nang is a pretty decent sized port. So yeah, I mean, the ports tend to be pretty close by. Yeah, we tend to mostly do Saigon Port or Vung Tau when we do from Ho Chi Minh City. Our team's based in Ho Chi Minh City, so I feel like most of our projects in that area.
Ho Chi Minh City is what used to be called Saigon.
Up until a little over 50 years ago, on April 30th of this year was the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon and the end of the Vietnam War.
That's true. Yeah, my father served in Vietnam. He was on. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Apocalypse Now.
I did.
Older movie from like the 70s, but it's, little riverboats. I don't know, 6-8 guys or something on these little riverboats, and he was in the Navy, so he was in charge of a fleet of 6 of those, and their job was to take SEALs up the river, up the Mekong Delta, and drop them off at cover of darkness under the bushes. And they go in, they do their mission, and usually come running back under fire, being chased, and they have to evacuate them. Geez. So I went back with him. I went to Vietnam in 2009. So it's been 16 years, but I went back with him. It's his first time back. And so we toured around where some of the bases used to be, and one of them's now a hotel, and it was kind of weird for him. But he wouldn't go to the north. He's like, north, that's enemy. I'm not going to Hanoi. I'm not going up there to Ha Long Bay or any of that stuff. So we skipped that part, and I went there by myself later. But I was impressed with Vietnam. Wasn't what I expected. I think a lot of people have this. For sure. They've never been to China. They have this mental picture in their head of like a bunch of rice fields and something you saw in the Bruce Lee movies 30 years ago. That's China. But China in particular is more modern than its tier 1 cities are way more modern than any city in the United States. Any city.
Yeah. Living in Shanghai, just explaining to people how like advanced their metro system and all the electric buses and everything, people just didn't believe me or have a concept to even understand what it was like.
Yeah, no, it's because it's all new. I mean, it's all been built with the latest technology, but they're way advanced. Vietnam is not at that level yet, but it's it's more than rice fields and cart pulled oxes pulling carts. So I mean, the thing that always sticks out to me is the freaking mopeds everywhere. I mean, you play Frogger in Ho Chi Minh City to cross the street.
Just walk at a consistent pace and make eye contact. And
is that what it is? Is that make eye contact?
Well, just look at the way so you actually see them coming and make sure they go around and walk at the same pace. If you stop, because they're anticipating you moving, so they're going to go where you were. If you freak out and stop, that's when accidents happen. If you just move consistently, that's the trick.
That was crazy to me. But I got some really nice artwork hanging in my house, and I bought a couple marble statues in Da Nang.
Oh, nice.
And I had those shipped back. Hoi An.
Right by Marble Mountain.
I mean, Hoi An is one of my. If I had
I love Hoi An.
My ex-wife, I told her, at one point we were going to go have a bunch of custom clothes made, and I said, "Oh, we got to go to Hoi An." She's like, "Why Hoi An?" I said, "Because you can take any picture from any magazine, anything that's been on the red carpet, go there and say, I want this." And in two or 3 days, you get a hotel and you go tour the city and enjoy the food, the pho, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's not pho. Everybody that's listening, it's PHO is not pho. When you go order it locally, it's called pho. Pronounce it right, and you'll get a better tasting pho. Anyway, so I was like, we're going to go to Hoi An because the garment stuff there.
Yeah,
the city's cool, number one, and then just all the garment. I had a complete 5 outfits made, suit, head to toe, custom fit, like in a day or two. I mean, it was cheap. I mean, this would have cost me $5,000 or something. Here, it cost me like $300, or I don't know I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was crazy cheap.
Yeah, I got the suit that I got married in, made in Hoi An. It was a nice royal blue cashmere suit, and I think it was $160, but I spent extra to get the silk line and the cashmere.
Well, mine cost more because I'm a bigger guy. I need more fabric. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, so there's a lot of really cool stuff there. Great. So how do you speak Vietnamese?
No, I've tried, and I'm awful at learning languages. When I lived in Shanghai for 2 years. I took Chinese lessons the whole time, and beyond ordering food and getting around taxi cabs, I don't have that ability to learn languages at all. It's like my weakness is learning languages. I know the basic. I can get around. I go order food items, say hello, goodbye, and all that. Yeah, I'm always surprised when I go to some of these massage places. Sometimes I get a massage, and it's usually run by Chinese here in the States, like the foot massage places. Yeah, no, not those kind of massage places y'all thinking about. These are legit massage places. Don't get your mind out of the gutter. But I go and I go into them, and at the end, I'll say shishi,
which is thank you in Chinese. I'm probably butchering it, but they'll always look at me like, oh, well, they're like all surprised. I know, like, thank you in Chinese. The same, people always love that when you know a few things, and the same thing in Vietnam. Does Vietnam have all these holidays? Like China, it seems like they don't work half the year because there's a holiday.
Not as many, but there are several big holidays. Because, Tet is the same as Chinese New Year, same dates, and effectively same holiday. And we had two big ones back to back. We had the Reunification Day, which is what they call the end of the Vietnam War, because it's when North and South were reunited. And then May Day recently, Qing Ming Festival. April had like three, April, May. Yeah, May Day was May 1st. But it's not as many, but there definitely are a few holidays, and you kind of people get tripped out from it. Yeah, no one expects Tet to be such a big holiday. They were like, oh, we got Chinese New Year, so we want to move to Vietnam because we want to get the work done. But like, it's actually going to be the same in China or the same in Vietnam.
Do you have the same problem with turnover in the factories they have in in China during Chinese New Year? A lot of those workers go out of the tier 1 cities back into the countryside, and they never come back. And you get a fresh group of people that come in after a big holiday, and that's where a lot of problems start happening with manufacturing.
No,
does the same thing happen in Vietnam or no?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same in Vietnam because a lot of the workers are signed to year-long contracts, and they begin and end at Tet. So it's the same deal because people leave early from their contracts right before, and then right after, same deal. They have to hire new workers to replace the old ones or renegotiate old contracts. So even though it's a 2-week holiday, it's really a month because 1 week of them having labor shortages and a week of them trying to rehire more people for the next year.
No, the workers staying in dorms and stuff at the factories like they do in China, or
not as much, but it does exist. Yeah. So there are dorms, but most of them tend to live pretty locally, relatively to the factories, and kind of commute in.
So if I was looking now, is anything being done across the border in Cambodia? Are you doing anything there, or just strictly Vietnam?
We do some in Cambodia, but the working conditions in Cambodia are a bit worse. I prefer not to do Cambodia if I have the choice, to be perfectly honest. But we do some in Cambodia. There are a lot of factories, a lot of Vietnamese-owned factories even will have a secondary factory in Cambodia to do extra labor or whatnot, because it is cheaper labor costs even in Cambodia than in Vietnam. So we're with them occasionally, but don't do too much.
What are the good things to do in Vietnam? What is Vietnam like? Okay, stay away from this. Don't ever do, I don't know what it is, but don't ever do this in Vietnam. Just leave that in China or somewhere else. But if you got this, and this, definitely take a look at Vietnam. Yeah,
apparel, textile, anything made of fabric, backpacks, luggage, purses, stuff like that, nature, duffel bags, anything made, bed sheets, anything made from fabric is great in Vietnam. It's their largest single industry by our estimation. Textile industry has about 6,000 factories and 2 million people work there. So it's the largest industry by far. Then second to that, we do a lot of shoes. Vietnam's the largest exporter of shoes in the world. So we do everything from Nike, or not Nikes, to sports shoes, tennis shoes, pickleball shoes, work boots, leather shoes, and everything in between, even like leather shoes with like custom orthotics and insoles. So we can do some good customizations. Second to that, a lot of wooden goods and furniture. Vietnam is a tropical country, so they have excellent tropical hardwoods, access to tropical hardwoods. So
it's like bamboo and stuff like that?
Well, even like acacia and teak and rosewood and rubber wood. So they have, it's really good because they're part of ASEAN, so there's plantations all throughout Southeast Asia for everything. So we can get wood transported pretty easily, but most of it's even grown pretty locally. Like we do, probably number one wood we work with is acacia. And then we do a lot of rubber, which is pretty identical to oak. In fact, a lot of times rubber wood is called oak because it's so similar in density and color. But we do, a lot of furniture mainly and home goods out of wood. And then beyond that, we're starting to do more and more plastic and silicone injection molding. That's kind of one of the quicker growing industries, but there's a lot of
electronics. What about electronics?
Electronics is hit and miss. It's like we said, it's growing. We do some electronic projects in Vietnam, starting to do more. Like we just did a rice cooker project. But it's very hit and miss on what they can do. We did one project recently that I was quite proud about. We did a remote control stand-up paddleboard fin. So it had a remote in your hand and Bluetooth connection. We actually managed to do majority of that in Vietnam. Which is great.
I know that project. I have that product. That's a Kickstarter.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know
Yeah,
if I can name
it looks like it's white and has like it's like a little. They have a white one and a black one. It has like a little fin.
Yeah, that's our client.
Yeah, it's called.
Yeah.
I have it. I just saw it yesterday in my garage. I was cleaning some stuff up. It goes on the bottom of a surfboard, and then you have a little like watch.
Yeah. Stand up paddleboard.
They had massive delays on that in getting that out because the guys that made that. That's not your fault. It's the guys that made that had never done manufacturing before, so they didn't understand the process, and then they did some testing and had to go back to the drawing board and fix a few things on the remote.
But they're
So I know that exact. That's funny you say that. I know that exact product.
Nice.
So what should I absolutely not do?
Oh man, we get a lot of requests for LED lights. And LED lights are almost exclusively made in China. So that's kind of one of the hardest ones to find. And kind of some more complex items. Like this is a simple one. We were looking at keychains, but they had like 3 different materials and kind of various molds, but the price they were getting was super, super cheap in China. And we just couldn't even come close to reaching those prices. These are like the touristy keychains you see in gift shops of like every tourist place. They were supplying them and they were making exclusively in China, got hit with 145% tariffs, but it was just the mix of the materials they were using because they had rubber keychains, metal keychains, all that. It was just impossible to find at that such low price. Like we couldn't even come close to their price. That was a little frustrating to get. But I mean, there's definitely kind of more and more coming to Vietnam.
What about IP? I mean, how intellectual property? The Chinese don't respect it. You can have an agreement in China and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
How's the situation in Vietnam with counterfeiting and knockoffs and factories stuff going outside door and sharing?
It's better because, knock on wood, we haven't really had a big problem with it in Vietnam. But yeah, you definitely have to protect yourself. Vietnam is nice that you can actually enforce English language contracts. But we still always try to get everything dual written in Vietnamese and Chinese. And it's not been as big an issue, but it's definitely, I would say, easier to enforce in Vietnam, but not easy at all. Yeah, I mean, there's lawyers that can handle IP if you're really concerned. And like we said, I kind of mentioned the luggage client we had recently. He's very adamant about IP protection from China to the point he doesn't even want his molds made in China because he's convinced that the Chinese factory is just going to sell them. So he's doing everything in Vietnam that he can or not in China.
What about other regions? I mean, there's some other sourcing people are saying, hey, Mexico is hot right now, and you see someone and doing a webinar to the Amazon crowd. Hey, you should source in Mexico. Then someone else like, no, forget Mexico. It's Indonesia. Indonesia is the hot spot. And then the next guy comes, nope, we're leading a trip to Vietnam, sourcing trip to Vietnam. No. Next one comes and says, no, you all got it wrong. India is where it's at. Let's come to a show in India. What's going on? Where are all those valid? Are you doing anything in any of those, or is there one that you really think is like a head and shoulders above the rest after China?
I mean, I personally, Vietnam, like we started expanding to Southeast Asia and Mexico since last year, but just in terms of what they can do is very limited. Like we're looking at a lot of Mexico, and they can do like industrial metal, aftermarket car parts, some workwear projects, denim, stuff like that, but it's very limited. And the amount of people we get request products from Mexico versus what Mexico can actually do is, I mean, the demand for Mexican manufacturers is much higher than what they can make because most of what the factories there are, they're set up by, like GM has their own factories for car parts and St. Metals and other big American brands have their factories, but they only make exclusively for that brand. So there's not much contract manufacturing that people like you and me.
The Chinese have set up these industrial zones along the border, which Chinese built managed factories, right? Also.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. And when I was there, I noticed there was a lot of Chinese just everywhere with factories. Probably should have walked up and asked them, hey, what's your factory? What'd you make? More than I did.
Yeah, I always tell the story. Regular listeners to the podcast probably heard me tell this about those of you that haven't. I always remember what drove this home to me is the impact of Chinese manufacturing around the world is during COVID. You remember in 2020 when COVID first broke out, there was a region of Italy that really got hit really hard. It was all over the news and like people were dying left and right like crazy. And there's even a documentary, I think on Netflix or Hulu or one of those that kind of chronicled some of the doctors dealing with this. And I was like, man, why is this one little area that bad? And then somewhere another news story came out, and it showed that they didn't tie the two together. I tied it in my head, but that area is a huge industrial area where all your made in Italy sunglasses and made in Italy handbags are actually made in Italy. True statement.
Right side of Milan, right?
By Chinese.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the factories, the biggest trade route was Wuhan. So people coming from Wuhan, where COVID originated and broke out from, before we knew that this was a thing, they were going back and forth. So that's why it spread so much. So that's like, okay, that makes sense now. Man, I had no idea that at the time that China had such a presence in Italy, even to actually make stuff. I mean, the thing about China is they're not great at innovation, but they're at first generation innovation, but they're masters at second generation innovation. So someone else, creates the brains. And that's not to say that the Chinese don't have smart people, and they do innovate some things.
Yeah.
And just generally speaking, they're behind in innovation and first generation innovation. But once someone from the West particularly figures out, hey, we need to make this iPhone, this is what it's going to do, they can take that and beat the crap out of it to figure out what's the best way to manufacture and most cost efficient way to manufacture this and to put this together, and how can we tweak it here and there to actually make it even better. They're masters at that.
Yeah.
What about the Vietnamese? What are they masters at?
I mean, in terms of high level, I mean, they're definitely getting there. I mean, that's a good question, because we do a lot of in terms of iPhone level stuff, they're not really quite at that level at all. Because a lot of what we said we do in Vietnam tends to be in apparel and textile manufacturing, but they're definitely good at figuring out ways to get fabric stitching products down. Like when we do plush toys, they can really get the fabrics or the patterns down just from basic images. But yeah, it's definitely not at the level of the Chinese when it comes to recreating something like the iPhone and figuring out how to do that efficiently. Haven't gotten there yet. Because when I know the Apple factory in Vietnam is more or less ran by Apple more directly than even the Foxconn plants in Dongguan and Guangdong province. That's kind of a good question.
Well, robotics is going to take away a lot of the human side on a lot of stuff, but it's where robotics is going to have a hard time catching up is in hand stuff. You're doing little toy soldiers or miniatures, and you got to paint, the boots on this little miniature or something. Yeah. That's where it's hot. It's going to be hard to automate a lot of that out. Yeah. And right now, that's gone from predominantly China to moving towards other countries like Vietnam. But I think a lot of people are saying Africa is where it's going next. As you just said earlier, Vietnam's wages are starting to go up. The next place for this kind of stuff is Africa. Yeah. And are you dabbling in that? Are you seeing any?
Not in Africa specifically, but I do know there's definitely going to be a lot of investment, especially from the Chinese for setting up factories. And I know some textile factories and whatnot are getting set up there, but I personally don't have too much experience sourcing from Africa. What that's going to be. Definitely worth something checking into, because 2030 is probably when that big shift will probably happen. Because I know China, they want to move up higher and higher in the supply chain. What they make in terms of in country, their cars, airplanes, microchips, iPhones, and they're kind of more or less, from my experience, seem to be fine and actually almost encouraging the lower value production to move outside the country, which is why a lot of it's moving to Vietnam and why China's not being that active in stopping it. But if China owns the factories in Africa or Vietnam, that's ultimately good for China, and China definitely sees that.
So how do people find Cosmos sourcing? How? Yeah. When you said that when your first products were back in Vietnam, you said those first two products were the big metal things that you wrap the wires around.
Yeah, the wooden spools, giant wooden spools.
How did they find you?
At that time, I just had friends.
Are you on Alibaba or are you on?
No, I'm not on Alibaba.
How did they find you?
I have a website, cosmosourcing.com. And so SEO seems to be the number one way. And then, I've been around for 10 years. So majority of my clients come from word of mouth. So clients referring to other clients, which has been great. But in those early days, I had just cold calling friends and say, hey, do you know anybody looking for products in Vietnam? And that's how I got started. One of my college classmates worked for the company. They're a kind of industrial packaging company. He just worked for them and just knew the contact. So he put me in touch with their head of procurement, and that's how that first 2 projects I started. And then I had a mentor in Shanghai who worked for Trooper, which is actually basically a Mexican Home Depot. He was their head of sourcing. So when I moved to Vietnam, he just got in touch with me like, hey, we don't have anybody in Vietnam. Do you want to help us with that project? And that was the wheelbarrow handles and shovels and whatnot, because they just didn't have anybody in Vietnam, or just find us a factory, we'll work with you. And so that's how I got started there. But yeah, after doing that for a few years, you build a website, you build a team, and then word of mouth gets out. People start finding you online.
So what brought you back to the States? You graduated from Alabama, then you head over there. You're working for another company, right? You said, in China, and then you ended up doing the sourcing, moonlighting on the side, and then it became full time.
Yeah,
so, and then over to Vietnam for quite a few years, and then now you're back in the States. What brought you back?
Well, originally COVID brought me back. Then me and my wife basically, in 2021, we had our first kid and ended up settling down and having a family. So just staying stateside for the time being and traveling as needed. But kind of starting a family really kind of brought me back to the States.
Have you been back to Vietnam since 2021?
Oh, yeah. I was there last year.
Okay.
Yeah. But not as much as I would like to go.
Is your wife Vietnamese?
No, she's American from Wisconsin, which is why we're in Wisconsin, not Alabama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alabama. Yeah, that's. I think I was telling you the story when we met about Alabama Texas A&M game a couple years ago. This game was Alabama was number 1 in the country. I think we were at the beginning of the year we were ranked pretty high, and we just. We had fallen out at the time. We had fallen out of the rankings, and I'm a huge college football fan, as are you. And I was always, that's like religion, Saturday religion for me.
Yeah,
and I was going to watch that game, and my wife's saying, "No, Kevin, Austin City Limits Festival is going on, and Billie Eilish is playing tonight. I want to go to Billie Eilish." And I'm like, so I did the good husband thing. I set the DVR to taped the game. I literally turned off my phone. I didn't want anybody messaging me. Avoided all radio, avoided everything. Made it through the night. We come back. I sit down at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30, and like, all right, I'm going to watch the game. I turn on the DVR, and the damn thing was like still showing the post game because the game had gone over or something. I'm like, oh, no, I can't see it. Don't turn the sound off. And I could not get the dang thing to rewind. So just naturally, I go onto my phone, turn it on, and start to Google, how to fix this issue. And all of a sudden, texts are coming in left and right about how we kicked a field goal in the last few seconds and won the game. And I was like,
"That was a brutal game.
This is a game we're supposed to be annihilated in. Alabama's going to destroy us." And I'm like, never again. Wife, you're divorced. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. I ended up divorcing her, but not for that reason. So you're a huge follower of Alabama football, right?
Oh yeah, went to every home game, even when Mike Shula was coach. When I was in college. And traveled to as many as I could too. Yeah, I loved Alabama football since I was a kid. My parents went there. My grandparents, 3 of my.
So have you been to every SEC stadium?
Not every. I've been pretty much everyone, but Missouri, Florida. I've actually never been to Florida, and South Carolina.
Have you been to College Station?
Texas A&M. No, I haven't. I've been to Austin though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You gotta invite me.
No, I live in Austin. I live in Austin. I love Austin as a city, but people always say, "What's it like as an Aggie living in Austin?" I say, "It's like living behind the orange curtain."
I know.
But
I cannot live in Auburn or Tennessee.
Yeah,
or Knoxville.
Exactly. One of my favorite things to do though is when Texas sucks, especially for about a decade they were bad, is to listen to talk radio here and just listen to them and complain. That was one of my favorite things to do. But you probably the same with Auburn.
Oh, absolutely. In Tennessee too.
In Tennessee. Yeah,
the whole Nico thing is quite nice. And all their little head coaching searches that they've gone through, all that drama.
So the season starts next month. I mean, at the end of August. What do you think is going to happen this year? What's going on? Is Georgia going to reign? Is Texas going to say, "Hey, we just came in. Now we got Matt. We got
our year.
We're going to be crushing it." Or are you guys going to be back? Alabama's back. Second year coach. Well, y'all have a second year coach. We have a second year coach. So
yeah, it's true. I think we're back. I don't know. It's hard to say. I really hope we're back. We at least got to make the playoffs and do well. Because, missing the playoffs last year was just brutal. I don't think I can handle another sub-10 loss year. I take every loss way too personally. My wife would tell, just like, Jim.
I used to do that. I used to take them. Used to take them personally, but I have to remind myself now, it's just a game. It's still my blood runs maroon. I mean, your blood runs crimson. It's hard to do. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I just can't separate myself. And yeah, my wife only thinks I'm a fan of Alabama because they're good. But I mean, I grew up an Alabama fan. So even our 3 and 8 years, I was still watching every game through the dark ages, through Mike Shula, Mike DuBose, all the mics we had. So it's definitely, I mean, Saban was excellent though. Definitely
Jim, you got to fix this problem, because here's the problem with Alabama football. Y'all don't got no alumni money. You need to fix this. You need Cosmos sourcing to blow up.
I need to be the billionaire.
Or you can have the Cosmos sourcing stadium, or the Cosmos sourcing athletic facilities. So the Cosmo Athletics, there it is, Cosmo Athletics. Y'all need some money to pay these guys now. That college football players going to get paid. That's your problem, is you don't have rich oil money like we have here in Texas.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we don't have a single billionaire alumni.
You don't have a single billionaire alumni?
No.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. We're like one of the few fan bases. I mean, we got a like broad amount of people that donate, but yeah, it's definitely, we're losing money getting bad.
Oh, man. It's going to be,
approach from us.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting year. So how did you do that when you were in Vietnam? Did you watch the games? Like,
oh, yeah. I woke up literally at 3 a.m. Yeah, VPN or some sketchy pirate sites. Well, say I was ever breaking the law, but definitely found some ways to find it. But yeah, I literally woke up at like 3 a.m. watch every single game. I don't care what time it was. I was up watching it.
And was your wife with you in Vietnam at the time?
Yeah, I met my wife. She was an English teacher in Vietnam, so we actually met in Vietnam.
Oh,
so we were at the time dating.
Cool.
But yeah, same in Shanghai. There was one bar in Shanghai that showed every college game, the Camel, which was excellent because there was no one big fan base there. So like every single fan of college sports just went to this one bar. They were open 24/7. And you had Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Michigan, wherever, all in this one bar watching games. And yeah, that place is great.
Oh, that would be fun.
And we grew up until like whatever time. Like I remember, kick six. Probably shouldn't have mentioned that bad one. But yeah, the kick six game, I remember it was like the perfect fall day. And like that game ended like 8 a.m.
Those listening, I'm gonna put a little dagger in Jim's side right now. Those listening, the pick six, the pick six game was like 2012, 2013, somewhere around in there, maybe.
Yeah, 2013.
So the game was over. Alabama goes down. They score. The game's over. I forget. It's 2 or 3 seconds left in the game. It's a very short amount of time, and so you have to kick off, and the chances of running a kickoff all the way
wasn't a kickoff, it was a field goal. It was a field goal that was called.
That's right, field goal. Sorry, they're kicking a field goal.
Which is even more unusual. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It was a field goal.
It's a 53-yard field goal. I can tell you all the details if you want.
It's a 53-yard field goal that fell short, and so Auburn had someone back there to field it. And usually, it doesn't hurt to do that, but they fielded it in the end zone, near the back of the end zone, and they ran it 100+ yards all the way to the other side and won the game. And that's one of the most classic college football games of all time.
Yeah. For the record, I was also there during the Alabama Notre Dame game where we won the national championship 42-10.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun because Notre Dame had Notre Dame, the whole time we were there that year, they had a pretty large Chinese alumni base. So probably 20 people at every game were Notre Dame fans and like 3 Alabama fans all season. And they were just so arrogant. And that game was just so cathartic because every Notre Dame fan was there. And then just basically me, I was belligerently drunk, I'll admit. Finally just letting out that frustration of them thinking they're and just beating them before you do 10. So I'll tell that game instead. And awesome.
In Shanghai. In Shanghai. That's
awesome. I was in Shanghai. I was at the Camel Bar. And that was another game. Like woke up super early. Yeah, like drunk by like 8 a.m.
So what do you see? What else is going on in sourcing? I mean, what do you see? I know we can speculate right now like what's happening with tariffs, but tomorrow everything can change. So but where do you see this What do you see? How do you see this whole thing, not just with China and Vietnam, but globally? What's your opinion on how this whole thing shakes out? Is there going to just be some 30% just going to stick, even though if they may have changed it by the time this comes out, because something can change tomorrow? But what do you see long term? What's the hedges and what should people be doing?
Yeah, I mean, 30% right now, I think is going to be the base, because I don't think it's going to go any lower than that unless something major happens for China. I mean, it's 25% before, it's only 5% increase. And it's been 25% for, 6-7 years now. So, I mean, honestly, I don't see that one going any lower. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot more deals with other countries. It's really hard to say because this is recorded in May and probably be in July. So everything we say now with tariffs, like what it is now, is going to be outdated. Who knows? I expect a trade deal will be announced in some time in the future. There's been 2 rounds of talks at the high level with Vietnamese and U.S. officials. But what that trade deal is, I'm anticipating less than 20% tariffs on any deal announced with Vietnam, and probably less than 10. But yeah, it's really hard to say. I think, a lot more countries are going to negotiate and more trade deals are going to be announced sooner than later. But it's going to be a slow trickle of trade deals.
So if I want to work with a sourcing company, I'm selling on Amazon, I got our Kickstarter, or Walmart, or I just have a TikTok shop that I'm going to try to pitch some stuff. What do I need to know? What aggravates you? Like people come to you like, God dang amateur. Or is it other people come to you with all their ducks in a row and like specific, so what are some tips that you would give people that whether it's Cosmo sourcing or somebody else, when they start to look for sourcing, what are some expectations that they should have, and what are some tips to help them actually make sure that you can do your job to help them?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest one is private label is just not really a thing outside of China. And by private label, I mean talking to a factory, having their catalogs of goods they already make, and just putting your logo on it and having them sell it. Pretty much all manufacturers outside of China are going to be contract manufacturers, which means they expect the client to have a fully detailed product spec sheets and bill of materials and their products. And they'll work with you to tweak it for manufacturing, but they really expect the client to provide that for them. So a lot of clients, they have very vague ideas of a product, or prospective clients, I guess. They will have vague ideas of a product, but not like actually detailed down to the drawings. And we'll work with some clients who take a broad product and really kind of narrow it down and kind of find some designers for them to actually make the tech packs and whatnot. But you really have to have the tech packs, the bill of materials, what the product's going to be to really kind of succeed outside of China sourcing, because the factories, by and large, there are obviously exceptions to this, but by and large, they don't have designers on staff. They'll maybe have some production engineers that can do the tweaking and programming for the machinery, or make the patterns for cut and sew items, but they really do expect the client to provide the actual tech packs and product specs for the products.
So how do I get those? Do I go on Upwork and find somebody? Do I use a company like Gimba, or is that something you guys provide?
Yeah, it's one thing we're looking at. I'm talking to one of my buddies who just got laid off from a kind of tech company, possibly adding that service. But yeah, I mean, by and large, we kind of we have a network of designers we kind of put them in touch with, and once we have trust contacts. But yeah, you can go on Upwork or Fiverr and find designers that do a pretty decent job and make a pretty decent tech packs and specs from there.
So what's a tech pack? Explain that to people listening. That what's he talking about? A tech pack? What's that? Yeah, break it down for me. Yeah,
it varies by product, but for the most part, it's more or less instructions on how the product's going to be made. For a lot of basic things, like we wear a lot of clothing and textiles. So you'll just have the pattern files. We work with basic ones with scrubs where it'll just be the measurements of like the t-shirt. You just want what a size large and any specific cuts you want, maybe athletic cuts drawn out. Other ones are more detailed where they have the actual fabric, each piece of fabric that's gone into a shirt detailed out of those designs. And then, same thing with even time we do
down to the buttons too, right? Where the buttons are, what material the buttons are made of, and how the hole should be, and whether the collar should turn in or turn this way, or have a button. Like every little detail is in the tech pack, and then down to
the more detail, the better.
This fabric and this material, and it's plastic number 2713, and it's PMS color, the black. It's not just I need a black T-shirt. It's PMS whatever.
If you have that much detail, it definitely helps.
Specific things, right?
Yeah. I mean, we work with some basic ones, like we'll do active wear, and then they don't know the exact material they want. So we'll get the factory, send them swatches of materials, like a dozen different ones, and then they'll feel the stretchiness and feel which ones have the right thickness. And then there's some back and forth with that, but it's definitely take more time. You really got to kind of refine that project. But yeah, the other ones have like you said, the exact material specified, exact colors, exact blends. Like it's 89% polyester, 11% elastylene or spandex or whatever. And then same thing with like, anytime we do anything silicone injection molded or whatnot, you got to have the 3D design files for that prior to it.
The STL files and everything?
Yeah, the STL and step files and whatnot to actually get it made. And yeah, I mean,
and that can be done. I mean, just to those listening, STL and step files are basically like the CAD. They're like CAD.
Yeah, the CAD
drawings. You can have, when I did my dog bowls and my Apple Watch charging dock, those were designs. I literally sketched them on a piece of paper, sent those to somebody. They did the 3D renderings of it, and we got it to where I approved it. And then they created what's called STL and step files, which is then what you give to the actual manufacturer to actually make the mold and the process and everything too. And that wasn't. I found a guy on Upwork to do this for my dog bowls for like $400.
Yeah.
And it's not. It can be expensive. You go to some big design firms in the United States, it can start adding up to thousands or tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you get electronic manufacturing, you get quite a bit because they have to do testing and standards and all that. But for basic stuff like dog bowl, $400 is pretty standard.
But so basically, shoes, you need someone to do that. When I want to do a slow feed dog bowl, I shouldn't be coming to you. Hey, Jim, I got a slow feed dog bowl. Help me find some factories. It should be, let me visualize how I want this dog bowl, sketch it out the best I can, get someone to render it up, find someone on Upwork, or if I don't know anybody, and to actually do some renderings and then create the step file. Because for you to actually get to find the right factory to actually do this and to actually be able to find, the right process and everything, you need that. I mean, so me just coming to you, I want a slow feed dog bowl, I want it to be round and have this and this and this groove and this groove. That doesn't really help you from a sourcing point of view. So the more data you have, and if I can do a 3D print of it and send you a 3D print of it or several copies so that you can send them out for proposals to the right factories, all those kind of things help, right? Is there anything else that I'm missing in that would help when people are going to source?
I mean, bill of materials, 3D files, tech packs. Yeah, those are pretty much all you need. Sometimes you need some standards, but that's about it.
So a lot of these factories that you guys work with, these are not ones that people are going to find on Alibaba.com or on the internet. These are like, they're like, even some of the bigger ones, they're like, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not everyone has a website, which is kind of crazy to me. I feel like that's the basic that you need. But I mean, we have a team based in Vietnam, and they're constantly going to trade shows. They're constantly going to trade events. There's trade organizations like Binh Duong province kind of maintains a directory of factories and whatnot. So we're based there. So we constantly kind of check up on new factories, who's building what. And then something that we have interest in clients, we'll definitely reach out to them and get them that way. But yeah, it's not like, there's not like an Alibaba for outside of China. Obviously, Alibaba does have that filter where you can do Vietnamese factories, but honestly, a small percentage, like 10%-ish of factories are on Alibaba in Vietnam. Otherwise, you have to use multiple different resources, find their contact information, and actually chase them and follow up with them, find their phone number, and then really chase after them. They don't come to you. And a lot of people kind of get frustrated with that. And that's kind of the value that we as a sourcing company provide, is we know the factories, we know which ones can do low MOQs and do this and that. And we can definitely kind of figure that out for our clients. And that's kind of what the value that we really add is.
So the Vietnamese factories that's one of the problems of people. They try to come to the United States to source, and you call somebody up, hey, I want to make 1,000 of my slow feed dog bowls just to kind of proof concept. They don't even return my call. They're like, that's not worth my time. In China, they'll do that. They'll do even smaller runs. Is it the same in Vietnam? They'll do really low MOQs, or
not
is there
low MOQs? Yeah, and actually since April, when the 145% tariffs on China, a lot of factories just stopped doing low MOQs. We do a lot of, before this, we had a directory of clothing factories and a few other factories that we knew did low MOQs. It was specific low MOQ factory list that we have. And yeah, reaching out to those since April, a lot of them just say, hey, we're not taking on low MOQ projects anymore. But yeah, for the most part, like clothing, textiles, dog bowl, I would anticipate 1,000 units would be the minimal order to really get a factory interested. Anything less, like they just, quite frankly, don't view it as worth their time, unfortunately. It's kind of frustrating because, most of the people that reach out to us, they want low MOQs and it's just not suitable. Yeah.
How's the negotiation with Vietnamese factories in China? The negotiation, you got to go show up and have dinner with them and eat some weird stuff. And then you can kind of get moved up in the queue, production queue. Or you get a little bit better price. Or if you sit down with a Chinese factory and you say, hey, work with us. I know you got, the government will insure through Sinosure, so you can work with us a little bit. Here's our plan. We're going to sell 30,000 each year, but I don't have the money to cash flow this. But if you help me, give me a better price and all this negotiation stuff where you can try to work your way in. Does that happen in Vietnam, or is the Vietnam very strict, or is it just like, okay, we'll reduce it a penny or something, or how's it negotiating with the Vietnamese factories?
No, it definitely helps. Yeah, being in person negotiating, but yeah, I always find the true price in Vietnam, or not the true price, the initial price they give is closer to the true price. And what I say by true price is the low price that you actually go. Because in China they'll initially quote like almost double, and you really negotiate down and down and down and down. And in Vietnam, you can negotiate down a little bit, but it's, like I said, closer to the true price where they get like 5%. But yeah, if you visit in person and get to meet the people and actually get to know them, and like you said, go out and eat some weird stuff, which I think is delicious a lot of times. I eat whatever. I haven't even had bulat, which is the worst thing I've ever eaten. Yeah.
That's Filipino.
Yeah, that's Filipino, but they actually have it in Vietnam too, and with little eggs in the middle of the table. I'm just like...
not
a fan.
I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, I've done it once. That was enough for me. But yeah, if you visit in person, you definitely get better price and move it up in the queue and get better terms. So yeah, I always recommend, at least get face to face, get to have an actual relationship, not a working relationship, but an actual relationship with your factories. And yeah, if possible, visit. And yeah, the people that visit consistently get moved up in queue, get preferential treatment. If they need, like you said, better pricing terms, cause, cash flow or low MRQs on an order for whatever reason, they're definitely going to be more keen to give it to the people that visit and they know and actually have a relationship with, versus someone they only know because they emailed them half a dozen times.
So if you work for the tourism board of Vietnam, give me a slogan or give me a couple sentences of why I should be looking at Vietnam to do sourcing.
I find it easier and more straightforward to do sourcing in Vietnam. Because, in China, they have the whole Chabo Dao, the corner cutting philosophy. It's not that prevalent in Vietnam. They're much more straightforward and to the point and more or less honest doing business in Vietnam than China. And I just find them more reliable. Like, they'll tell you no if they can't do something, which is great. They're not going to BS you as much as other places. But yeah, it's just, what they make, they do a really good job at. So I definitely think if it's suitable, I'm trying to think of a slogan and quick little tagline for it. It's a great place to do business, Vietnam.
What's a great place to do sourcing? And if I want to look at Vietnam, where should I go to actually do sourcing? Was it Cosmos Sourcing?
Yeah, Cosmos Sourcing. I've heard good things about Cosmos Sourcing.
I've heard something about them. I've heard that they know a lot of people in Vietnam. So it's
we have a whole team.
Sourcing.com, right?
Yeah, cosmosourcing.com, info@cosmosourcing.com if you want my email, or Jim at Cosmosourcing, my direct email. Yeah, and just reach out to us. We're on all the socials as well.
Awesome. Well, Jim, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
Pleasure.
This has been cool. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
All this talk about Vietnam has gotten me hungry. I think it's maybe time to go eat some chicken pho. It's one of my favorite soups. Get a really good chicken pho, put some of the little bamboo sticks and everything in there, and it's always good. I think all this Vietnam talk, I think that's what I'm going to do. It's a little messy, though, sometimes. But anyway, Vietnam is someplace that I think you should take a look at. I didn't mention it in the call with Jim there, but I actually did some of my PPE in Vietnam. We did hand sanitizer in Vietnam. We had a factory in Singapore. They had a factory in Singapore firing it off, and a factory in Vietnam, and it was really good. The quality came out really good, and better. We had done it in China before that, and it was, like you said, they were cutting corners. And we took it to Vietnam and had much better results. So Vietnam is definitely an option that you can look at depending on what you're selling. It can be a great place to actually do some sourcing. We'll be back again next week with another episode. That's next Thursday, another brand new episode of the AM PM podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day, a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon.